Here's a question for you. Could the gold in all of the oceans make you richer than Elon Musk? Let's find out, shall we? The world's oceans do contain particles of gold dissolved in a truly gargantuan volume. So just what is the volume of the oceans? According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA for short, the total volume of the oceans is 1,335,000,000 kilometers cubed. We need to convert this into litres or decimeters cubed, as scientists call it, to use it in our later calculations. To do this, we need to do a conversion. There are 1 billion meters cubed in a kilometer cubed, and there are 1,000 litres or decimeters cubed in 1 meter cubed. So we need to multiply this number by 1 trillion, or 1 times 10 to the 12. That gives us 1.335 times 10 to the 21 litres of water in the oceans. But just how much gold is there in them waves, Jim lad? Well, according to an RSC, Royal Society of Chemistry article, there are 4 billionths of a gram of gold per litre of seawater. So if we multiply that number, 4 billionths, by our volume, 1.335 times 10 to the 21 litres, we find out there are 5.42 times 10 to the 12 grams of gold in the oceans. Divide that number by 1,000,000 to convert it into tons, and that leaves us with 5,420 tons of gold sitting in our oceans, just waiting to be taken. Now, as a chemist, I want to know how many atoms of gold there are in that many tons of gold. So first of all, I'm going to convert this into moles from mass. To work that into moles, I'm going to divide by the relative mass of gold, which is 197. So 5.42 times 10 to the 12 grams of gold divided by 197 is 2.75 times 10 to the 10 moles of gold in our oceans. Now that doesn't tell me atoms. To work out the number of actual atoms of gold, I need to multiply by Avogadro's number, this value here. So 2.75 times 10 to the 10 moles worth of gold multiplied by 6.023 times 10 to the 23 gives us 1.66 times 10 to the 34 atoms of gold in the ocean. Now I think you agree that is a truly mind-boggling, astronomically large number of atoms of gold out there, sounding very lucrative and promising to me. Let's go back to that tons value and try and put some real-world context on this. Now, Fort Knox is one of the largest gold reserves in the world, probably the largest gold reserve in America. Now, it has 4,583 metric tons of gold in storage. So if we divide the amount of gold in the oceans by that value, we find that it's 1,183 times the gold reserve in Fort Knox. In fact, let's think a bit bigger, shall we? According to gold.org, an estimated 205,238 tons of gold have been mined throughout the whole of human history. So we're talking about 26 times that amount of gold still being dissolved in our oceans, waiting to be extracted. The question you're probably begging to have answered, just how much is all that gold worth? Well, at current market value of $57.16 per gram, we're talking about an estimated value of $310 trillion. Now to answer the original premise of the video, would this make you richer than Elon Musk? Well, as long as Elon hasn't suddenly invested in Twitter or something crazy like that, he's currently worth $264.9 billion on paper. So if we could extract all this gold, you'd be worth 1,170 times Elon's current wealth. Whoa, Elon, come on, calm down now. Stop crying. We haven't finished yet. Before you go running off to borrow your Uncle Jimmy's dinghy and grab your gold panning kit and go all gold rush on me, just how are you going to get all that gold out of the oceans exactly? Many eminent and infamous scientists and institutions have tried and failed. We're going to try and learn from their mistakes and see what we can do. Let's start our investigations back in the 1890s with the New England pastor Prescott Ford Jernigan. Now, he claimed to have invented a device known as the gold accumulator, a wooden box drilled full of holes with a base of electrified mercury, plus a secret ingredient which he'd never revealed, which he claimed could accumulate the gold in the oceans. Now, Jernigan and his business partner Charles Fish were very keen to prove this to investors, so they did a demonstration, pulling up the gold accumulator from the water, they did reveal gold was mixed and laced in with the mercury. So investors very keen started putting a lot of money towards this project to create thousands of these accumulators up and down the North American coast, only to discover later on that it didn't work, and that Jernigan and Fisher had already scarpered off to Europe with all their money. It turned out that Fisher was actually secretly diving down to the gold accumulator and lacing in the pieces of gold into the mercury. The whole project was a total scam. They are the 1890s equivalent of crypto scammers, trying to pull a rug pull on investors to take all their money. Next up, we have the distinguished and well-resourced Dow Corporation. So they were already extracting bromine successfully from seawater and claimed that gold would just be another step forward in this process and reasonably straightforward for them to achieve. Turns out they were totally wrong, and they never managed to actually successfully achieve this. So, if a multi-million-dollar corporation couldn't achieve this, what chance do we have? Let's keep moving forward. Now we'll look at perhaps the most controversial and divisive figure in the whole story, Nobel Prize-winning scientist Fritz Haber. Perhaps better than any other person in history, Haber encapsulates both the dark and the light of the human condition. True innovation and ingenuity, coupled with dark intent and callous indifference for life. His innovations in the production of ammonia through the self-titled Haber process has likely resulted in the survival and proliferation of literally billions of human beings since the 1910s through the production of ammonia-based fertilizers and the improvements in crop yields that it yielded. And yet, his actions, both directly and indirectly, have led to the deaths of millions of people. Be that through his willing and zealous participation in the adapting of his chemical process to produce nitrate-based explosives for the German army during World War I, prolonging World War I in its course, be that in his direct overseeing of the production of chemical weapons such as chlorine gas during World War I for use against the Allies and its supervision during its use, or even his more indirect actions such as his creation of the Institute of Science known as the Haber Institute, which produced a delousing product, a cyanide-based delousing product known as Zyklon B. It's that product which was taken and corrupted by the Nazis, removing its fragrance, which was a warning, and then using it to kill people in the gas chambers during the Holocaust. Haber's wife, traumatized possibly by his actions, took her own life by taking his service revolver and shooting herself in his garden not long after he was involved in the chemical weapons development. A sad story. Haber's life story puts into sharp relief the tragic and conflicted legacy they left the world. For our story, we'll look at the latter end of Haber's career, when he was devising a method for paying off Germany's crippling debt due to the reparations put in place by the Treaty of Versailles at the conclusion of World War I. He too turned to the seas and embarked on an ill-conceived attempt to use his electrochemical knowledge to extract the gold from seawater. The issue was his calculation of the amount of gold was 1,000 times greater than reality, and his method would have proved ruinously and impractically expensive for the German nation. Okay, so far we're getting nowhere fast with our thought experiment. Let's try this. We will use the only published study which claimed success. In 1941, Nature published an article claiming that Dr. Colin Fink of Columbia University used an electrolytic process similar to electroplating with a rapidly rotating negatively charged cathode suspended in seawater to successfully collect small deposits of crystalline gold. So why isn't Dr. Fink richer than King Midas? Well, unfortunately, the majority of the gold present fails to form metal and remains a distinct phase known as a colloid. Dr. Fink concluded that extracting gold on an industrial scale using his method would cost 5 times the actual value of the gold itself. That would be a debt of 1 quadrillion, $550 trillion. What? If you want some context for that number, let's take China as a good example. The second largest economy on earth and the fastest growing economy on earth. And this amount of debt would be 87.5 times the total GDP of China in 2021. Let's think even bigger, shall we? So the amount of debt you build up trying to extract gold from the oceans would be 16 times the total GDP of every nation on earth. So I think it's worth saying that, hey, Elon, don't gloat, Elon. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like this more reverent look at the world of chemistry, do think about giving the video a like or subscribe to the channel for more content. Take care. Bye now.